Now, at long last, Season 2 of Andor is finally here, and in this video I'm going to give more of a general overview of the first 3 episodes, kind of my first impressions, if you will, including quickly going into what some might consider to be a rather controversial scene in Star Wars, one that had already leaked out and had some people talking or concerned recently. And yes, if you heard about that, it did turn out to be in there. It did turn out to be what you probably heard it was. And again, we'll talk more about that in just a minute. But anyway, before we get into that or anything else, I will have longer, more in-depth videos going into each individual episode that will come out in the coming days. Probably one a day over the next 3 days here. But for now, before getting into any spoilers or anything like that, if you're kind of curious what I thought of these episodes overall, I will say that they were good. They were very good, actually. Excellent or fantastic in some ways, especially when it comes to things like world building. But not unlike the first 3 episodes of Season 1, or the first arc of Season 1, they are a bit on the slower side, which is pretty much the only thing I had heard about this season going into it from the early reviews that are now out there. A lot of entertainment websites and certain individuals have already seen the whole second season, and they tend to say the same thing, that it does start out a bit slow, but that things do pick up and get really, really good. I've heard pretty much nothing but great things about Season 2, and I think Season 2 is currently sitting at like a 98 on Rotten Tomatoes, and it has 30-some reviews in already. But anyway, even if it is a bit on the slow side, that isn't to say there isn't still plenty of excitement and action in the first few episodes. In fact, it starts out with a bang, or a pretty cool escape sequence, if you will, or theft sequence. They're kind of one and the same. So yes, there is some cool action in there, but again, the pace isn't exactly a blistering one, which I am personally okay with, especially considering this is a second season, and they don't necessarily have to try and hook you out of the gate, if you will. But if you are someone who maybe watched Season 1 or started to watch Season 1 and found it a bit on the boring side, this could very well feel like more of the same to you. Though I would still urge you to give it a chance. This is some exceptional Star Wars. And I would say that these episodes were absolutely beautiful, both in terms of things like the costumes and the sets and just the design of everything, as well as how everything is shot. This feels big and epic. This feels pretty much like movie quality Star Wars all around. It is far superior to anything else we have seen from Disney Plus shows, including Season 1 of Andor. There is one shot right towards the very beginning of the first episode that is more or less just Mon Mothma walking around her family estate or compound, and it's just one continuous shot of her going from one area of it to the next one, and is clearly not filmed on something like the volume, because you just get this sense of a large scale, like she is actually in this massive compound. Furthermore, all of the performances here, much like in Season 1, are on point and damn near perfect. Genevieve O'Reilly is once again a standout here as Mon Mothma. It is so hard to believe how quickly she has become one of my favorite characters in all of Star Wars. Never would I have thought, way back in the day when I was a kid watching Return of the Jedi 1,000 times, that I'd enjoy a story about Mon Mothma's daughter getting married, but here we are. Let's dig into some spoilers now, starting with the controversial part, if you want to stick around for that, because it won't really spoil too much. And it involves an Imperial officer who, how shall I put it without angering YouTube, but an Imperial officer tries to force himself on Bix after first offering to look the other way if she helps him relax a little bit, because he knows that she is on this farming planet illegally. But she, of course, turns him down, and when she does, he gets upset and tries to make her agree to this deal anyway to help him relax, which is when she ends up killing him. And when another Imperial sees what she has done, she tries to defend herself by literally saying that he tried to R-word her. Which, no, is not exactly a word I thought I would ever hear uttered in Star Wars ever. And though in some Star Wars content it would sound completely out of place, and the whole scene would feel wrong somehow and completely just not meant to be in Star Wars, not that this sort of thing isn't just wrong in general or anything like that, but it would feel extra wrong to see something like it in Star Wars for some reason. Though personally, I don't really have a problem with it being in here. Andor, whether you like it or not, is not exactly your more traditional family-friendly Star Wars in the first place. Not that other Star Wars that many consider to be family-friendly hasn't crossed some lines and done some pretty intense things before, like it being rather heavily implied that Anakin slaughtered a room full of children, to say nothing of the poor Tusken women and children he also killed. Not to mention, even if it had never been seen or said in a single piece of Star Wars content, it's not like this sort of thing doesn't happen anywhere in the Star Wars galaxy. I mean, if we're being real, it probably happens quite a bit. It is a huge galaxy after all. There are trillions upon trillions of people, so that sort of thing, unfortunately, is going to happen. Now, all that said, I honestly don't know that it needed to be in there. I don't know that I think worse of the Empire more than I did already, if that was even the goal of the scene. I mean, when you consider all Bix had already been through because of the Empire in Season 1 being tortured and all, just the thought of being captured again is more than enough tension, I think, for the scene. It would have worked just fine if the officer was simply trying to capture her and not trying to do anything extra. Either way, it is what it is. It's in there now, and I'd imagine some people will find it very disturbing or unacceptable that it just should not be in Star Wars no matter what. And I get it if you feel that way, and most of the time I think I would probably agree with you that we don't necessarily need to see that in Star Wars. Again, we know it's going to happen in the galaxy somewhere. You don't exactly have to show it. But I do think it is okay in Andor, if that makes sense. I think it fits this show, whereas it would feel way off in other pieces of Star Wars content, especially those that, are a bit more on the family-friendly side or meant for all ages to sit down and watch together. Moving on then, there were basically like 4 storylines running through these first 3 episodes, with the strongest one probably being the Mon Mothma wedding stuff, in large part because of, as I mentioned before, it was just some really cool and incredible world building, as well as some amazing performances and tension and some drama and some intrigue as well. No, there's not a whole lot of action exactly, unless you count Mon Mothma's dancing at the end as she gets drunk. But somehow you're always on the edge of your seat when dealing with her and her situations, which in these episodes included Tay, her longtime friend and confidant, essentially threatening her if he doesn't get some recognition from her or get paid, basically. Unless he's after something else. I don't know. He did just lose his wife or she left him. But of course, that all gets taken care of by Luthen, who is also at the wedding, and he brings in Cinta to take Tay home from the wedding, and, well, I think we all know what is going to happen there. And it further proves to me that, yes, in Season 1, Cinta definitely killed that family on Aldhani. Another of the storylines, maybe the weakest, I felt, was Andor on, as we would find out at the end of the second episode when he finally gets away, but he is on Yavin, where he's going to drop off this new Imperial TIE fighter that he has stolen, but instead he finds a rebel cell that is essentially stranded there without food and water, and they are quickly turning on each other, and Cassian gets kind of caught in the middle. And though it wasn't bad, and I think it helps show just how hard it is to get a rebellion off the ground, that if you lack resources, the whole thing can just fall apart before it even gets started, that nothing destroys trust quicker than hunger, it kind of felt more like an excuse to delay Cassian than anything else really, anything all that profound or exciting, even though it is kind of action-packed and all that. It's certainly not bad. I didn't have a problem with it. It just wasn't as interesting as some of the other stuff, I guess, and it just could have been a little more, maybe. I don't know. Again, wasn't bad. It just wasn't great either. Then there was the whole Dedra storyline, which starts off with her at what is basically a secret meeting hosted by Director Krennic. Yes, the Director Krennic from Rogue One, where they talked about what to do with the Gormans because they want a special resource from their planet, but trying to extract it might just destroy the planet since they have to tamper with the planet's core. Anyway, Dedra doesn't want to take this assignment, even though she has been handed it by Director Krennic, and she can't really say no. And that is because she still is on the hunt for access, and it's been a couple years now, and she still hasn't found him. This then turns into what's been going on with Cyril and her since the end of Season 1, where she is kind of rescued by him. And it seems they are now living together, and everything between them, or between them and Cyril's mother, Edie, as well. It was so perfectly awkward. I loved every minute of it, even though I will admit it didn't really feel like Star Wars, especially with the strange music when his mom comes to dinner. It almost felt like this very strange type of sitcom at that point. But nevertheless, I feel like it worked, and I'm here for the weird when it comes to these two characters. Finally, there was the storyline with, let's call them, the Ferrix crew, with those who we saw escape at the end of Season 1, including Bix and Brasso. They have basically ended up as illegals hiding out on a farming planet, and the Empire has now decided to come and do an inspection and cut off communications to and from the planet, which was all fine and good. The scenes, were vested enough in these characters at this point to be worried about what is going to happen to them, especially considering I think we figured many of them were going to die in the season. Plus, again, this does offer some interesting world building here. It is amazing how much world building we had in 3 episodes of this show when we look at how other shows have lacked it severely. Of course, eventually our Ferrix refugees are discovered. I mentioned what happens to Bix before, and it all culminates with Cassian getting back just in the nick of time to save the day and take out the Imperials, or just a few moments late, since Brasso is killed trying to escape, which was actually quite sad. It was pretty emotional seeing him die and seeing Cassian's reaction to it, Cassian's reaction to losing another along the way, and again, I don't think it is going to be the last death of the season by any stretch. And so again, I thought this was a very solid start overall. Sure, maybe a bit on the slower side, but I've got patience, and after the first season, I know to trust Tony Gilroy and to let him have his time to cook, which I am sure he will with this season. There was a lot of setup here, a lot of putting characters in position for later events. It feels like, even for characters I didn't mention like Val and Cinta and how they might eventually end up, which my guess is it is going to be rather tragic, but we'll see, I suppose. Either way, a good start, and I'll talk a lot more about all of it in more depth in my reviews over the coming days for each individual episode. But for now, that's all I got for you this time. Now it is your turn to take to the comments below and tell me what you thought of these first 3 episodes. Were they good? Were they not so good? Did you like them? Did you not like them? And maybe you expected a bit more, or was this exactly what you were hoping for? Whatever the case may be, leave a comment below and let's talk some Star Wars. And until next time, thanks for watching.